As we come to the end of the Halloween season and thus the end of Schlocktober, we pause to ruminate on the theme that's informed this year's selection, which celebrated the return of Schlocktober to its home on the big picture and at The Escapist with films about homes and the concept of home. Moving into a new home, fighting for dominion of a home, old-fashioned homes, really old-fashioned homes, but just as sometimes a home can be a prison can also be a home. The breakdown of society outside, coupled with the socio-political metamorphosis on the inside of a penitentiary system, can create a tautological schism wherein the conceptual realization of home can take on, to hell with this TED Talk bullshit. I tried to think of a way to connect today's movie to the homecoming theme, which kind of happened by accident in the first place, if I'm being honest, and I just couldn't swing it. This is here because I finally got permission to show this movie on here, and I want to do it, so I'm going to do it. This is the story of Riki. But what is the story of Riki, you may ask? Well, Riki was a young boy. He had a heart of stone. He lived 9 to 5, worked his fingers to the bone. Just barely out of school, he came from the edge of town, fought like a switchblade, so no one could take him down. He had no money, no good at home. He walked the streets a soldier, and he fought the...
Hey! That's enough!
Yeah, sorry, couldn't help myself. Riki-Oh is a 12-volume Japanese manga series by Masahiko Takajo and Tetsuya Sarawatari, published by Business Jump from 1988 to 1990 and adapted to anime shortly thereafter. Ostensibly, it follows the exploits of Saiga Riki-Oh, translation depending, that means either Power King, Strength King, or the Mighty King, a very angry young man whose mastery of Qigong martial arts meditation techniques allows him to punch and kick harder than anyone else on the planet, and who stalks a post-apocalyptic world recognizable only by his camouflage poncho and Star of David hand scar in search of his corrupt younger brother, whose hand has a complementary swastika scar, which is interesting. It could charitably be called similar to the better-known series Fist of the North Star, which concluded the same year Riki-Oh began. Anyway, it was a big hit in Japan, but also really popular elsewhere throughout East Asia, which is not generally a guarantee when it comes to manga, enough so that it was adapted officially into a live-action feature in Hong Kong by Golden Harvest and writer-director Lam Ngai Kai, the filmmaker best known for pretty much this, last year's Schlocktober feature The Seventh Curse, and the blockbuster smash hit Erotic Ghost Story. Retitled in Hong Kong simply as The Story of Riki, it strips out most of the broader Riki-Oh mythology, dials back the post-apocalyptic future to merely dystopian, and confines itself to an early story arc wherein Riki the Strength King finds himself confined to a monstrously corrupt, privatized maximum security prison, wherein he receives what could be the most badass, mysterious hero introduction ever.
He's carrying! Yes, sir. Why didn't you let the doctors take the 5 bullets out of you?
Souvenirs.
See? I mean, nobody really watches The Story of Riki by accident, but if you happened upon that opening knowing nothing else about this movie, you'd keep watching it, right? Anyway, with the manga's backstory filed down to just had an interesting uncle, learned kung fu, the movie draws the who the hell is this guy mystery vis-a-vis the bullets out for about half the story, but it's ultimately not that big a mystery. He was a nice boy, then some bad men killed his girlfriend, apparently not knowing she was dating a bulletproof master of Qigong. So Riki punched them to death, and now he walks the earth bringing justice by punching other bad people to death, and now he's stuck in a prison with mostly wrongfully and or too harshly convicted men, oppressed by a greedy and corrupt assistant warden and a violent gang that controls the cell blocks and runs an opium den out of the prison for the yet unseen head warden. And that's pretty much our setup, the walking embodiment of justice for the sake of justice, whose blood type might as well be zero chill, in a petri dish of corruption where the filmmakers clearly did not spend very much of the budget on turning whatever this location was into a horrifying dystopian prison. Yeah, sets, costuming, and atmosphere are a little sparse here, because the story of Riki spent its money where it mattered. Kung Fu body horror. Yeah, Yeah, there really isn't much in the way of an act structure or through line other than waiting to learn Riki's origin. They establish the setup and punchline dynamic of inmate gangs and or officials abuse the prisoners, Riki kills a bad guy, the remaining bad guys torture Riki in an absurdly violent way, it doesn't work, and then repeat it over and over in escalating tenor until you get that you're basically watching The Shawshank Dismemberment and just wait for the next famous showstopper, which the story of Riki delivers about once every couple of minutes, from the infamous stomach punch to Riki tying his own muscle tendons back together to make a fist, committing seppuku but then trying to strangle your enemy with your own intestines, razor wire fighting, extreme blocking, extreme uppercuts, SWAT team disembowelment, and the rest. There's also the bizarre because it was a manga first details, like the head warden strutting around in full Dickensian Scrooge getup, towing an obnoxious son with him, the ostensible gang boss of the prison cell block leaders in the manga and anime framed as an androgynous, possibly stereotypical gay-for-the-stay pretty boy, being played by an actress wearing bulky shoulder pads and a bowl cut.
He's working against us. Shithead.
Rogan's kung fu is unorthodox.
Yeah, the effect really doesn't work, but that's actually Yukari Oshima, a Japanese stuntwoman who was in a bunch of Metal Hero and Super Sentai shows and then became an 80s and 90s megastar in the Philippines, billed as Cynthia Luster, the female Jackie Chan. She has quite the filmography. Oh, and the head warden has a gun that shoots compressed air bullets that make you explode.
A gun's especially made for shooting elephants.
Oh yeah, and the warden also knows Qigong.
The warden of any prison has to be the very best in kung fu.
But when he does it, he turns into the Hulk. Entirely clear as to whether or not Riki could have just knocked out that wall the entire time, and if not, why he didn't just do it in the first day. It's almost like someone thought this was making a real statement about reforming the carceral state, and Riki is staying locked up so we can argue the finer nuances of rehabilitative versus punitive prison policy, but then all of this keeps happening. The story of Riki is one of the first and still relatively few Hong Kong movies to receive a Category 3 rating, the equivalent of an X or NC-17 in the US, solely for violence, since it doesn't include any sex scene. Now, this limited its initial box office performance in its home country, but it was more successful and released a few months earlier in Japan and was granted a limited theatrical run in the United States, which helped it become a cult classic, a status that was cemented when one of its tamer gore effects, the famous head crush scene, was used as a recurring gag in the original pre-Jon Stewart version of The Daily Show, which, I promise you, existed. The film is ridiculous and cheap looking, but is it any fun outside of the fights, the blood, and the you've got to see this factor? I mean, it moves at a good enough clip that I'm not sure it needs to be, but it helps that Fan Xiu Wang, sometimes credited as Louis Fan, is actually pretty compelling as Riki. Sure, it's a one-note character, but Xiu Wang does a really good job looking totally committed to the reality of all this nonsense, and if nothing else, he definitely embodies the specific mix of absurdly jacked macho stoicism and sobbing emo kid angst you want from a manga martial arts hero in this era. He never quite got out from under the shadow of this movie, unfortunately. He even showed up in the nearly bloodless unofficial sequel shot in the Philippines in 2004 called Super Powerful Man, which is just terrible, and he's still working today. He played Jin Shin Sao in the Ip Man movies. Now, if you're on the internet, you've already seen parts of this, guaranteed, but if you've never done the whole story of Riki, it is definitely worth it. I'm Bob, and this has been Schlocktober. The big picture will return to normal next week. I mean, unless I don't feel like it. It's my show, so really I could stretch this out into December if I wanted to. I'm not sure I do, but, I could. Can I? I think I can, right? Guess we'll find out. See you next time. Okay, yeah. Hey guys, this is me, Bob, here at one of our current work locations, where, among other things, currently at work on new episodes of The Big Picture, and since it's almost October, working on this year's Schlocktober. This intro should be appearing in front of re-released episodes of classic Schlocktober. I believe the 2018 season, either season 9 or 10, was previously available as a compilation. Going back through the playlists, realized that this season, which was one of the last or next to last ones that was on the second volume of Escapist episodes, was in the compilations, was not re-uploaded as part of Big Picture Classic previously, so we're rectifying that. The compilation episodes, very good for my traffic numbers. Thank you very much. Not necessarily great, I realize, for people, fans, viewers, who are just looking to watch one episode or link to one episode. Use as an example, say, hey, here's this one episode where a movie was talked about, check this out. So, fixing the fact that these specific 4 or 5 episodes were not in single form on the channel, getting up. I recognize that not everyone is the biggest fan of the regular, semi-regular re-uploads of not previously available or not previously remastered material. I understand. I also hope that fans and viewers can understand our perspective, that we need to get as much of the original material up on the channel as possible, because otherwise it's sitting on some other channel where someone else is getting ad revenue off of something that I did, that we produced, that we now own, that should be coming back to us. And speaking as someone who's had to go out and basically hunt down old uploads of my own material to get back, I want to have as much of my stuff in one place as I can. The lineup for Schlocktober this year, I'm not going to reveal ahead of time because we generally don't reveal ahead of time. I'm very proud of what we're working on this year, and I'm very proud of a cool announcement that I'm planning to make at the towards the end of Schlocktober this year that I think people are going to be very happy about. Continuing to push to get more new material out, get more reviews up. Like I said, we've been still producing the show out of this location, other locations, trying to get this whole operation back up on its feet. Thank you from the bottom of my heart again to everyone who supports the Patreon, who shares the Patreon with their friends, continues to watch this content. I know that many of us are rebuilding things that fell apart during the whole plague situation. It's been tough. So to everyone who is still helping us get this out and helping me put really my life back together, thank you so much. Schlocktober is coming. Until then, I'm going to try and get these remastered 2018 episodes up at least once a week in September while getting other content out. Looking forward to it. I love autumn. Love this time of year. And thank you all so much.